Hi, congratulations. You are looking stunning today. Allow me to be the first to give you a high vibe. Your podcast for everything super. I'm Relic, but listen, enough about me, right? I've got 3 top-class gents alongside me, below me. Listen, I'm not in a compromising position because I know I'm in safe hands with the Eminem of commentary, a man that can drop bars so hard that they can practically cook the mum spaghetti themselves. It's Mad Magical. How you doing?
Knees weak, arm spaghetti. You know, I get the reference you got there, but I'm doing really good and just hanging out.
Absolutely, major pleasure. Comedy connoisseur. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm doing well. Doing well. It's been a
Excellent.
good day.
I mean, listen, it's a great day when you've got wonderful people to join a podcast with and twin a Heart of SUPERVIVE community. Listen, it's getting a little bit hot in here. I know who I want to save me. It's you every time. Biggest smile, biggest friend. How you doing, my good sir?
I'm great. I was not ready for this intro, and I'm so happy right now. I love you. I'm great.
Dude, it's all good vibes here. Welcome to High Vibe, just in general. So, shout out to our wonderful friends over at Kaiju Power Hour. First and foremost, I think it's worth saying that we hope for those guys to return at some point. It's a fantastic podcast. If you haven't checked it out already, do so on YouTube. But at least what we plan to do here is, as I say, cover everything super VIVE, whether it's patch breakdowns to current hot topics in the community to competitive to maybe whatever we want to talk about. This is your source for everything SUPERVIVE. We're planning to do it bi-weekly with a rotating cast, so fingers crossed we can, soothe those eardrums, we can maybe tickle the brain, give you some new thoughts, and give you some interesting discussion points either in the comments below or not in the comments. I don't know if this is going up on Spotify or wherever. I'll figure that out in post. But speaking of, on this show upcoming, we're going to be talking Meta Watch, either from underwhelming to whelming. We've already got our first controversy alert of the podcast with the Hunter's Journey rework discussion. Is it insulting audience intelligence, or is it simply a necessity that we need for this game to thrive? We talk about the importance of being positive, not oblivious. And, of course, we've got our Abyssal Cup preview for Abyssal Cup 2 at the end of March. Fingers crossed I get the editing done in time so this podcast releases before then. But before all of that, I want to make it a bi-weekly tradition to open up our podcast with the curious question of the pod. What is it? There you go. There's the soundbite that's going to be before every single one from now on the fly. Great production value. And the question is pretty simple. I should mention, by the way, use those YouTube comments to get your questions in. Sometimes it'll be a question that's quite prudent for the moment, that's on the top of my mind, and that I think will actually engage good discussion. But we want to hear from you guys. Do you have any questions about what our favorite flavor of cheesecake is, who our favorite hunter is, how long have we been doing whatever we're doing, what's the story in Balamori? Lots of question ideas. Let us know in chat. But Mad Magical, let me set the scene for you, right? Let me set the scene. You are on just a picturesque date with your wife. Lovely niche Italian restaurant by the seaside.
Ooh, okay.
The sound of the wind across, it's perfect. It's wonderful, but something doesn't feel quite right. You're waiting for something. And then she asks the question that you have been hoping to hear for months at this point now. The question that really makes you fall in love with her. Mad Magical. What does SUPERVIVE mean to you?
Now, that is a perfect question, especially because last night my wife and I played SUPERVIVE together. I'm trying to get her into the game, so it's perfect that you said that. Because I literally just got her to make an account. We were playing. I was teaching her the game, and so for me, SUPERVIVE is just this amazing game that I fell in love with. Pretty much almost a year ago. Like when you first introduced me to the game back in Project Loki. I got to be in a couple of the closed alphas, and so for me, it's new horizons because I come from a deep League of Legends background, having been on the NACL, LPL, LCS, and so for me, this is a very new change of pace. And something I never did in my commentary before. Like my casting has only been League of Legends since I started back in 2016. And so to me, it is like a fresh start almost. That it's a great thing for me to try to change how I kind of view casting as well in a way that I feel like more leans into who I am as a caster too. Because League is I love League, and I've played it since forever ago, back in 2010. But I was starting to fall out of love with the game and just kind of finding it okay. SUPERVIVE takes all the things that I loved about that game and amplifies them even more. So it's this beautiful game that I think still has, its quirks. It has some problems that still need to get worked on, especially because we are in the beta phase right now. But it is something that I deeply appreciate and think has a great future.
We actually, I want to say, and I'm pretty sure this is the case, I want to say that you're the last person out of us four to get into SUPERVIVE. Like you say, like I introduced you to it, and I certainly knew of Twin and Major before then. Major, I don't know which one of you, Major or Twin, got into it first. I'd wager
Definitely
maybe Major. Yeah.
Definitely Major, because when I got in, I was watching Major videos.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. You were watching the Major Time Rewind or my live stuff?
I'm pretty sure I saw, I think it was your Bishop video.
Okay,
around the time I had started, because I started in July of last year.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, that's been a long journey for you then. I mean, this you've been. I mean, I remember back in August 2023 when I first joined, seeing not just Major Pleasure videos, but like you were taking part in all the show matches back then, and
yeah,
you're one of the goats.
Kind of. My first thing with the game was back when they did their first like public reveal, I guess, of the game, because I remember I heard Joe put a tweet out about a game and you could sign up for it, but their first video with public reveal, like about public revealing the game, like, oh, this sounds amazing, and then I went and joined the chat and talked to people, and people were like, yeah, it has Smash Bros like parts to it. I'm like, okay, that sold me. That's all I needed to hear. I can spike people off the edge of the map. All right, cool. And then when I finally got in, I really fell in love with it. The first test I played was the first test Huntress was added, who you may all know as Myth now. Back when she was Green Shrike.
Yeah.
She was literally just Shrike, but green. We had Green Shrike, we had Edgy Flo, who is Zeph. And those two were pretty big back then. But I just remember starting and just falling in love immediately with the game. And then the content just started happening because I was a mentor and I wanted to help new people who were getting confused. And then so the first video I made was a quick guide for things you may not know from people who have played for a while. And then that video immediately became outdated the next month. So what I decided to do after that was I swapped over to doing what I called Major Time Rewinds, which were, hey, this was what happened in the last patch. This is what people thought of it. Here are the big changes. And I just made it a video series. And then eventually, now that we're live, I've started doing the Hunter Endeavors, and I might start doing other stuff. I started the Crash Course this literal last month, and I'm going to keep doing that as well.
Which I will say, the Hunter Endeavors might be one of my favorite running video series at the moment. Just the sheer absurdity that you go into with those videos, combined with the fact that they are actually educational, is genuinely so impressive. And I really enjoyed your quick look at Eva as well. That Eva Crash Course, again, it has that major flavor, I like to call it, where it will always give you a chuckle, it'll always give you a smile, but it also is really good at explaining stuff. Which, listen, when this game gets 1 million players concurrent, I mean, this is the man who pops off before he has truly left the stratosphere. So a little bit of a preview there. And Twin, I know you were holding up the heart sign there. Of course, you've been streaming SUPERVIVE a long time, but you also have something from Smash Bros to enjoy in this game as well.
Yeah, so my story with this game is actually kind of I don't know if I would say unique, but it's different. I do come from a competitive Smash Bros background.
Mm.
Traveled, competed, did commentary for Melee for a long, long time. And it was actually a Smash Bros player, Supernac, who you all know from doing background stuff for SUPERVIVE now, who
Yeah.
introduced it to me on the 4th of July, which is an American holiday for non-Americans listening in. And I ended up playing it for a bit.
No way.
It's like, yeah, shock. But it was like I got 2 hours of playtime during the window and had to leave to go to a party. And I was so sad because I played a match with him, messaged a bunch of other Smash Bros friends of mine. I was like, everybody drop what you're doing because I know you're at home playing games right now. Play this game with me. And then when I left, I was just getting texts from everybody about how much fun they were having. And here I am, like sipping a drink, watching fireworks, sad that I wasn't at home playing this game. And yeah, which is just a wild statement to say, but like the game captured me immediately. And I think to go along with the question of what does SUPERVIVE mean to me, it was the thing that came out of it the next day for me that honestly captured me with this game. And that was that I was on shift, needed to film some content for TikTok. And normally when I do that, it's like, what do I want to talk about today? And all I could think about was SUPERVIVE. So I'm sitting in a fire truck and I'm like, hey, I played this game last night. It's a blast. It's in alpha, so hopefully there's a playtest soon again. And I don't know, I just thought it was really fun. And it didn't get a lot of traction, like 50, maybe 100 likes. But 2 comments that popped up kind of caught me off guard because one was from somebody named Joe who just said, hey, thanks for playing our game. And I was like, okay. And the other was from somebody whose name on TikTok was first name, last name. And I'm trying to remember actually who it was. I think it was Bellissimo. And they put a whole thing about like, hey, we're a small indie studio. It means a lot. Thank you so much for checking out our game. We hope you come back. It was just very sweet. And then I got a third message from who it ended up being rated saying, I DM'd you, please read. And I thought I was being pranked. Like, I'm like, there's no way the devs of this game are actually reaching out to me. Like, this isn't happening. And it was because they loved that somebody found the game organically and stopped to say, like, I love this game. I am hooked. I want to go play it right now. I might call off sick if it's available. And they actually typed a letter to me that is sitting back, I'm trying to line up right around here. Typewriter typed a letter to me just saying, thank you so much. It really means a lot, and sent it out to me. And to loop it together with the Smash Bros background and what this game means to me is that I love competitive Smash, but the ones who don't love competitive Smash are the developers of Smash Bros. So they don't do a lot to support
That's true.
it. Sorry, we might have to muddy this out a bit. But I mean, it was always very frustrating hearing like tournament might get canceled because they don't want it. And then to go to this game where the devs are so kind and ingrained in the community and listen to your concerns, be it good or bad or toxic almost, and they want to help, and they're active on the subreddit, they're active on Twitter, they're active on TikTok, trying to make this game good. I was like, you know what? I am sold. I will support this game until I physically cannot support it anymore. And like, it's just, to me, this game gives me hope that like it's going to be a great game because the devs care.
You know, you hit the nail on the head there, truly, because especially, and I know it's slightly jumping ahead to the competitive discussion, but the fact that we're not going to beat around the bush. You know, the open beta launch, although initially successful, you know, to find 47K concurrent viewers or players on a weekend is no small feat. You know, it shows there is something tangible in the game that people enjoyed or were interested in trying. But then, of course, there's a fall off, and I think after a fall off, it makes total sense for developers to become a little more insular, to take less risks, to focus on what went wrong and try and correct it for full launch, which, you know, to a large extent they have done. You know, I think there's been a little more quiet, and to be fair, they've done big swings on the game to try and change it, which I think is great. But at no point did I think that they would ever consider at that stage reaching out to people like me and saying, we want to support your tournaments. Whether it's with Theorycraft coins, or in the case of Abyssal Cup and Sunday Night VIVE, with actual cash prizes. You know, the fact that they have been willing to do that because they actually believe in the players and in the staff putting on these tournaments to make SUPERVIVE look great for them. It's risky, but I think it just goes to show that even in this stage where it's not as tight-knit a community maybe as what myself and Pleasure would have had back at the very beginning of or like middle of 2023 and around that, like the devs are still very much ingrained in what everyone at SUPERVIVE does, and that kind of leads on to my story with SUPERVIVE, which is pretty simple. This game means the world to me because the community means the world to me, and because the developer team mean the world to me. It sort of came along at a point in my life. I didn't join as early as Major, but the big Twitter announcement from Joe Tung basically saying, hey, this is Project Loki, have a look. And I'm like, oh my god, this looks amazing. This looks so freaking cool. And so I sign up, I get into the play test in August, and it just so happened that was the first play test where they did a Discord streamed show match. And I went to whoever I had talked to from the developer team, rated qualifier, and I'm like, bro, get me on the mic. I'd love to cast this for you. And the reaction that I got from that cast was one of the most heartwarming experiences of my career. Because I think up until that point, having done Rocket League, having done sim racing, I was kind of just like the other guy. People who listened to me, you know, they had nice things to say, they had bad things to say, as is always the case with commentary. I had never had such a unanimous, yo, this guy's so cool, get him casting again, so on, so on, so on. And, you know, it was just the case of real recognizes real, but the Spider-Man pointing meme to everyone. Because you got the developers who are just so invested in their community. You got the community who is so invested in the game and in the content creators. And then you've got us folks, you know, creating content, competitive side, casual side, educational side. And we see this game with so much potential. We see this community that is so invested in it. And it's just a great place to be all around. And so, SUPERVIVE, please succeed, because we most certainly love you too. And how does it succeed, guys? Oh, 1 point from Magical.
I was about to say it has to succeed because I got enough train whistles that I don't.
Oh,
know
it's true.
do otherwise with them,
Yeah.
you know.
You know, I want us to have a SUPERVIVE LAN where you turn to the side and you open up like this crate and you've got like an arsenal of train whistles, just like different variants, some diesel, some steam, just like ready to go. Like,
Yes.
that's like the
Yes.
that's like the big picture.
Akimbo.
Kimbo. That's an image. No,
There was
for another
one-
day.
There was
For another.
there was
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to add real quick about the whole like what it means to us.
Yeah.
Well, there's two things. One, I have an island in the game, which
Yeah.
I'm the reason the island is in the game, I should say, because I broke the game. If y'all haven't seen it, I'll put it in the chat just so you can see it afterward. But the other thing is, before SUPERVIVE, I guess Loki, I've never made any content. Like, this is my first time making actual content for any game or anything like this. I just out of nowhere I decided I'm going to start making stuff, and then I started making this, and that is it. There was never any like, oh yeah, I want to do this for a while. It just kind of came out of nowhere. I decided to start doing it, and then it happened.
Insert your island at this point over the edited version of the podcast. I think first and foremost, that actually quite surprises me because your content is so funny and because your content is so enjoyable to watch. But it also speaks volumes as to this game and how it can inspire people. Not just in terms of creating content necessarily, but just all areas. I think it inspires people on how to play. I mean, what was the phrase that they used in that? It was like the combat sandbox. And it's so true, even to this day, arguably even more true to this day with trios and with more ability as an individual player to express yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those special games where if you get it, you get it, but most people, I think, will get it once they give it a go. Because I think people read MOBA and Battle Royale, and they're like, oh no. It's all of my worst nightmares combined, but actually let them cook, though. Let's go on to MetaWatch. We've referenced her, Eva. Interesting release, I would say. Interesting release, because I feel, or at least the feeling that I got, guys, from some of the community was that they almost wanted this hunter to be busted on release. Not saying busted, but they wanted her to feel impactful to an extent where she does change the meta a little bit. But I've always felt like that's the wrong way to go about it, mostly because I am scarred from my time with Pokemon Unite and having busted release after busted release week in, week out. Not a great time, folks, but she's obviously received buffs in not just a hotfix that came out the weekend, or it was like the Monday after her release, but in the most recent patch, she's received some buffs as well to her healing, primarily, not so much her damage. The vibe I'm getting is now it's good. Not like S tier, but competitively viable in ranked at the very least. Thoughts, gents?
I mean, I would probably have to agree that she wasn't like super busted, and I think so many people, like you said, wanted her to be busted, but it was better for this kind of hunter not to be, because it's easily one of those things that if she's too busted when she comes out, it's just a bunch of nerfs and then she's useless later on. Because you want to have more supportive styles in the game that aren't just the two we really had before, which is Aluna and Zeph. Even though Zeph is more like a mixed damage kind of bag for that. It's, I think, better for the game that she wasn't too busted. But I don't think that she was as weak as a lot of people said personally. I was playing her, and I just think she was clunky when she first came out, and there were definitely some tweaks that needed to be made to her that made things flow a little bit better, especially like how she grabs the orbs and moves them. Her tether felt a little odd as well when you first got it. I think those kind of buffs were needed. That kind of stuff was like the big necessity to make her viable. And now I've actually been playing her again a couple more times since the patch, and I'm like, oh, she's a really easy hunter to play now, because if you have a team that knows how to like set up some control over like especially late game islands, you're pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah, I've played against and with a few Evas, and like yesterday I played a lot. I didn't win a single match, but that's a whole other thing. Like I played against and with quite a few Evas last night that were really good and doing a lot of work. And like I was playing Bishop just because like I wasn't trying to get footage. I just wanted to play. And there was one point where I went against an Eva, and by the time I realized I was taking damage, it was too late because of how much she does right now, and if you're not very aware of what's going on. And I think it's in a good place because now I know. I know those balls are not good for my health, and I know I need to stay away from them.
So I actually had the exact same experience last night, always down to Bishop. I haven't had much time to play recently, so I haven't gotten to really mess around with Eva after this buff. I definitely agree with the clunky statement from Magical, but no, very much same. I feel like she's in a good spot, and she's very telegraphed with everything. It's like, oh, these orbs hurt now. I wasn't paying attention to them. I didn't consider them a threat. And next thing I know, I'm a wisp hopping around everywhere. It's like, okay, I really like that. Although she does consume a lot of space when you're against her, and it's really annoying, it's pretty obvious what space is occupied. So I love that I now as a competitor have to work around her and I'm not wondering what's hitting me. But yeah, she can definitely hit really, really hard now if you're not paying attention. So I enjoy her.
I mean, her kit is I love her kit personally. I think that she is so fun to play and craft strategy with. I mean, for me personally, as much as you can play a more traditional healer, I've actually quite enjoyed flanking with her. So you pick up Orb of Argos, you expand it to maximum circumference, all big words from Relic, and then you shift into the middle of a fight. So you basically just yeet it into the middle, and then, like you say, with the Orb of Argos and the amount of damage it can actually put out, all of a sudden it's like, ha, 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 and it sort of just makes entire enemy teams panic because, to quote All Might, you're here now. Or paraphrase All Might, never mind. That was a My Hero reference. I apologize. Anime weeb in the making. So, like, I really enjoy the fact that you can be a little bit more aggressive with her. I enjoy the control status. I think that her ultimate is actually one of the more useful tools, especially when we consider the competitive side. That ultimate can lock someone down, and if you are locked down in competitive, you ain't getting out of it unless you've got the health bar of the gods. But is this approach from Theorycraft of kind of sliding in the hunters underbaked and then tuning them up, do we prefer that, guys, to... I wouldn't say we've ever had an out-and-out busted hunter release. I think the closest we probably got was Krista, but I think that also comes down to how easy Krista is to pick up. I mean, Krista is... I've said to the devs for multiple months now, Krista should be default learning hunter.
Yes.
Passive procs intuitively, fun ultimate, interesting toolkit to learn about spacing and distance, where you should place your cursor on the screen. So yeah, going back to that main question, Eva, do we like the approach for hunters going forward, underbaked into tuned up?
So I will say yes, I prefer that for a couple reasons. One, as we all know, you mentioned Unite, but it gets very frustrating when all of a sudden every match, every team is required to have a new hunter. It gets old really fast, and I don't want to go onto Reddit or Discord and see people just complaining all the time. Instead, what I prefer is, like with Eva, she came in a little underwhelming, as you pointed out, but players in turn who really like her setup, it gives them a chance to be creative, figure out stuff. I was following Tien's journey, trying to make Eva just viable. And he was saying, like, oh, hey, I figured out this tech. I discovered this. Hey, did you know you can do this with her? And it kind of forces the creative juices to flow because you're not healing as much as you'd like or putting out the damage, but you're still having to figure out tech to compensate. So that in turn, when Theorycraft does come in and start like, you know, dialing it up just a bit on the healing output, as you pointed out, all of a sudden those players who were working hard to make her viable are rewarded for their work and their, if you would say, loyalty to this hunter. And then it just makes watching these competitive matches for me so much more fun because I can spot all this exotic stuff that people are doing that they discovered when she was underwhelming.
Agree, disagree, gents?
I agree with that for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, and this is where it's hard for me because I will always come from a competitive background as someone who does, has been shoutcasting for now almost a decade. It's like I always have to look at it like in that kind of scope where I see these things, I understand that there are players who are at the top echelons of competitive and they are really good at the game on every single level, both micro and macro, and they'll be able to take especially busted hunters and make them look even more so. But that's the thing I always have to like kind of tell myself, because there is a difference between competitive and casual. And when we look at how that kind of dichotomy works, you do need things to be a little bit busted because most players aren't going to be that good at things. But then you can go too far in there. Like Relic's already said it. Pokemon Unite. I've been playing that game for a while too, and some of the Pokemon they released there are just way too strong. Like it is. I get they want new players or like casual players to be able to pick up this new character and do decent. That they continue to put that practice in, continue to put the skills into. But you can go too far. League of Legends has always been infamous for this as well. Never really hitting the mark either with them being, too busted or too weak on release. And the thing I'll say, when you make a hunter too weak on release, the problem then is that people have it in their mind that that is how the hunter is regardless of patch for a long time.
True. True.
And this is both, positive, like in that they're too strong or too weak. It's like you always have to think that the first it's just the first instance that you get to see this thing, and it'll have a bias towards or against that hunter for the rest of their existence, even if you have buff after buff after buff or nerf after nerf after nerf. It's just going to be ingrained into them. Thankfully, this is all the beta, and we haven't even gotten to like the full release of the game, so you can actually get away with that a lot more right now. But
well, I mean, Major, surely the perfect excuse or the perfect response to that then would be, why not just release the hunter perfect? Why not just release balanced hunters? I mean, it's as easy as that, right?
This doesn't work like that. Never works.
No
like that.
way. Game development doesn't work like that.
What I was actually gonna say to tone it down a little bit. From what I was just going off on, I think the two things I think about when it comes to stuff like this, like with launch balance and how characters are balanced and stuff. With you were talking about like how bad or good a character is at launch, my mind always goes to Gnar from League. When Gnar was first added, every single person in the game thought he was garbage. He wasn't bad. Nobody knew how to play him. That is literally all it was. Once people figured out how to play Gnar, he's now one of the best considered one of the best designed characters in the game, and everyone loves him. But I think about stuff like that, where if a character's very confusing when everyone says they're bad, probably isn't that bad. You just don't understand what's going on. The other thing that I've recently been getting focusing a lot on is so Brawl, for example. Everyone has a problem with Brawl right now, just because of how strong he is, how much he dominates everything. I think his kit, I don't think is terrible. I think his numbers are bad. I think his gameplay fantasy and playing him and how everything flows, I like the way that feels. I just think everything else around him, he's way overtuned. Which I guess what I'm getting at is, I think there is a diversion between balanced numbers versus balanced kit.
Well, actually, that kind of makes the perfect segue, Major, because speaking of good idea but potentially awful execution, let's talk. I mean, we can maybe bring it into the discussion of the new player issues with this Hunter's Journey rework. Drama alert. Let me tell you, it's caused a bit of a stir. It has had no effect whatsoever on players with storied accounts. It has had arguably no effect on brand new players because they're brand new. They haven't played the game yet. It has affected players who have been caught in the middle of the Hunter's Journey, where some of these players have now had elements of the game locked away behind a level up wall. Let's preface this first and foremost. Level up walls in multiplayer games are not a new thing. A load of games have ranked restrictions. You have to hit a certain in-game level. Apex Legends has it. Marvel Rivals has it. Sudoku's... I don't know where Sudoku's going. Point being, a lot of games have it. So that in of itself is not a strange thing. What is a slightly strange thing, and what definitely leans towards more of the League of Legends background of a number of these devs, I feel, is locking away these features. For example, no armor evo, removing power slots, for example. Elements of the game which, for a lot of us who've played for a long time, we would consider part and parcel of SUPERVIVE, and it would be, and it absolutely is, a disadvantage on paper to remove these elements from the game. To say that it has been met with criticism is an understatement, and there has been a couple of statements from Theorycraft devs released in response. I'm going to take this one from the aforementioned John Bellissimo over on subreddit, replying to one of these threads that popped up in response. We are, quote, "We are actively developing a more robust tutorial and onboarding training. The philosophy behind the account unlock change is to limit the amount of learning someone has to do upfront. We are seeing player feedback and in new player labs that consistently say that they are being overwhelmed and they can't keep up with everything that they need to learn. Pacing out the different pieces helps create deferred moments of tutorialization where a player has a better chance of understanding new concepts when they reach them. Most new players are focusing on using their hunter kit and not using powers or consumables, so limiting those has felt like a friendly simplification up front. That said, we're going to look at new player retention and see if these things help or hurt, and you can trust we'll watch an update depending on the results." Now, major pleasure. I feel like we isolate a part of this quote, friendly simplification, up front, and I feel like that triggers a bunch of people who aren't playing SUPERVIVE anymore. Like, even if they haven't read this, they will have felt it in the ether of, oh god, simplification. I personally see where they're coming from, and actually, I absolutely agree with the idea that people are just playing the game. They don't even realize that they can pick up consumables or pick up powers, let alone use them. But at least just to try and drive this in the way of the debate, my personal feeling on it is it's too long. You are introducing concepts which should be in place way earlier than they are, because I think it goes up to what, level 25 before all of your actual things that you can use in the game are unlocked. Considering that we had, who is it? Was it Nomu or Pomu who? It was either Numa or Pomu, sorry, who was doing a test, and they played for 3 straight hours. They were only like level 7, level 12, around that area, which people aren't going to spend 3 hours on this game just to unlock stuff, surely, or are they?
I think that hit the nail on the head with the taking too long, where like specific thing, like I think it also just depends on which one it is. Like I don't have the list pulled up, but like certain ones like daily missions and weekly missions having to be after level 5 is a little weird.
That is weird.
Hunter mastery being at like level 7 or 9 doesn't really make sense. Like, that one feels a little out of pocket.
Level
And
19.
then the one at the very
19?
19? Oh,
19
fuck.
for Hunter Mastery. I have it right in
I'm
front
sorry, I
of me.
know we aren't cursing, but oh, that hurts.
Throw
The
it in our chat, Twin. Let's have a look.
Sure.
Yeah, I know the one that gets me is the last one on the entire thing for level 25 is executions,
Yeah.
which feels a bit confusing. I understand, like, yeah, it's a weird thing that sometimes might get someone killed because they don't really understand what it is. But like that's just a main mechanic of the game. And you have to hit the last level of the entire thing to get it. If it could still technically be like, yeah, it should be a thing, make it way earlier.
It's a flashy mechanic, though. I can understand why that's later on the journey, because, I mean, to be quite frank, using the execute is barely something that you see in comp, even. I mean, any player will tell you, why are you even stomping on a wisp when you should be chasing down a player? But I think that even on the fly in solo queue ranked, for example, you'd rather stomp on a wisp with that ability to not be locked into an animation just in case you get jumped on, so that you're ready to react. But magical armor evolves at level 3. Like, this is legitimately, I know it's only level 3, like you should be getting level 3 after the very minute, like maximum 1 or 2 matches, but we're talking about something that's intuitive. You automatically evo your armor through the game.
Yeah, that one definitely needs to just be gone, because having gotten my wife to play it last night, like, this is a great kind of thing, and she was the one who we've been talking about it, and she's been wanting to play it. So finally last night she's like, "Hey, let's play it." And so I was kind of teaching her the game, and I will say that I feel like it has missed the mark. Like, I hate to, it's not just me beating a dead horse, joining the crowd on this and stuff, because I think there are certain things they do right with this as well. I
Agreed.
think having this system, being a League of Legends player who's played since 2010, I remember back in my day, I remember when you didn't get Flash until level 15. I
Uh-huh.
remember when you didn't get Smite until 20. It's like, these are things that are typical for a lot of games to try to teach you these mechanics first before they really give them over to you. So that way you feel more confident and you're more likely to stick around with the game once you hit the ranked, especially because then you feel more like you have actually started to accomplish things in the game. And that's why I say it's like, but they missed the mark with these. Like, armor evolves should not be one of the ones that they put there. If anything, what they should be doing more is teaching players how certain mechanics interact with one another, how um, base camps really can work too. But I mean, and if you're gonna do stuff like this, I think that the real big ones that you should lock behind levels are like execution or finishers. You guys were even talking about that. That's a good one. I think warped evolves, having that one locked behind, because that's another thing. You want players to get more used to the items and how they can play around that. If you're going to go back to old League of Legends days too, you have rune pages that you used to have to make, and they would lock it behind certain systems where you didn't get to make your own customized rune page until you hit a certain level. It was trying to spoon feed you these things as well. And
Mm.
that's what you should really be trying to do, is spoon feed the players some of these simple, or like not simple, like more complicated tasks that they're not going to be nearly as proficient with, especially like, I'd say, but I'm just trying to think of ones. One would be what items you build, because a lot of players aren't going to understand the items right away. So telling
Yeah.
players these are the items you're picking and why, like, you're not going to getting really a choice in that matter. This is what you're getting at certain evolves, at certain levels, and even having it so that a lot of that stuff starting to be done for them could help out. But that's where now we're really trying to change up the whole mastery thing, and I think shortening it too could help, but League of Legends used to do all the way to level 30, and that would take you a long time. It was like a 2-month grind to get to level 30. But once you hit 30, that was ranked. That's when you played
Mm.
ranked, was after you hit level 30. And you had to play, I'm talking like not just, oh, you play for 2 months like once in a while. You're playing like 3-4 hours a day to get to for that whole 2 months just to get to level 30. That's how it used to be. And a lot of those games do that because they want you to get invested in the game. They don't want to make it too complicated for you. And we, as people who have been playing this game for a while now, we forget that. We forget that this is still a beta. There are going to be a lot of players that, at least, knock on wood, that we get later down the road that will not understand the core mechanics of this game, and they will be confused. My wife was very confused last time. I was walking her through the tutorial and everything, and teaching her a lot of these things, and like you said this earlier, Krista should be one of the hunters that is for new players. She's been playing
Mm.
a lot of Krista, loving it. She
Yeah.
had the tutorial on Ghost, didn't understand a single thing. It was a lot
That
more
grenade is
complicated.
so hard to hit, dude.
And the grenade, the holding down LMB as opposed to clicking it for your autos. There's a lot of these things because she's played League of Legends where you have auto attacks. You just click on someone and it automatically attacks for you. Walls are also very confusing thing for people who come from that kind of MOBA. You can't shoot through walls, which makes sense in reality, but as a MOBA player, that's not something that's usually the case. You're able to fire over these walls if you at least have the vision on them. And so I just think that this definitely is something that needs a lot of attention. And if you're going to work on it, this is the time before the game goes to full release. Get this out of the way now, but definitely go back to the drawing board and figure out which ones you need to leave as the hunter masteries or the hunter's journeys that you can get, and which ones you just take out, like armor evolves definitely needs to be automatically for the players.
Yeah. Twin, there's a lot of good discussion there already. I think good idea, terrible execution. Is it actually a good thing to remove elements of the game? Should they not be there? Should there not be more of a soothing introduction to stuff through to? I mean, it's worth adding a bit of context here, as you know, Bellissimo has already put out. They are working on new tutorials and onboarding systems. This is something that everyone has been crying out for, who has been a veteran of SUPERVIVE for 6 months or more. I've said for the longest time personally, add VIVE points to tutorials, or for completing tutorials. Give people an incentive for going to the tutorial screen. And then, hey, if you complete this set of challenges, not only have you learned the game, but you also get a, you know, like a free skin out of it. That feels intuitive to me, at least. But we've also got to keep in mind, as Magical said, there, as much as SUPERVIVE is way easier to understand now as opposed to 6 months ago, and I cannot believe how different the game is compared to 6 months ago. I thought that we were done and dusted with all of the heavy swings going into open beta. Boy, was I wrong. But, you know, is this just a case of we're seeing these big swings, we're seeing Theorycraft not get it right every time, and so it's more of the echo chamber of negativity, which is why this is being perceived so poorly, as opposed to it's a bad idea outright? Because I think that's where some people are struggling to separate their personal, I won't call it a grudge, but their personal flashbacks of Theorycraft in the past compared to actually what we're trying to do here, which is put something in place going forward that will be beneficial for all.
So I just want to talk on the thing you mentioned with the onboarding, the tutorials, things like that.
Yeah.
That was definitely my biggest, or I'd almost say my only gripe, because I'm a pretty optimistic person by nature. So everything is like, this is great, sunshine, rainbows, except the tutorial. I always find myself answering questions in the subreddit that feel like common sense mechanics, but I remember, oh, I didn't know how to do this. And that's actually how I learned about the game, was through making tutorials, because there was nothing anywhere, it felt like, of like, how do base camps work? How do souls work, for example? Souls were mysterious, and it's like, oh, it dropped. Good luck. You better know what it does, outside of like a brief description that you get. So I like the idea of certain mechanics being a little more spoon-fed and explained better. And so last week, I guess, I started an alt account just to play with newer friends.
Oh,
but
Smurf alert, hello.
No, well, it gives me a chance to use like newer hunters and stuff, but it was to explain to them and kind of hold their hands. It wasn't like, let me carry you through ranked. It was, hey, I am here as your guide to this new complicated game. Give me questions. And I just follow them around and I try to answer stuff. And it really helped me realize, again, it's a very complicated game with so many different features to it. So playing last night, just a little bit on that, so I could get a feel on this level 6 account that I have, like, okay, what is it like being restricted? I am very bad about remembering to use powers and consumables. Like on my main, I am just not good at that. I always forget, save for ones that I'm comfortable on. So I found myself with like 1 power, 1 consumable slot. I hated the 1 consumable slot, but it definitely made sure that I used it, because I was so frustrated being like, oh God, do I want a jump pad or do I want vision?
Yeah.
And so, and the 1 power, I was so acutely aware that I have 1 power, and I found myself using it more because of that limitation. So in that essence, I really liked this idea. And as you pointed out, Magical pointed out, it's not a new breakthrough concept. It's been done in games before. And I remember when I started League back in the day, it really helped me tune into the fact that, oh, I have this new ability, Flash. I'm going to want to use it now because it's on the forefront of my mind. But to echo everything else that's been said, I think it takes currently a little too long to get to some stuff. I kind of want them to speed up at least the leveling, so I'm not spending 5-6 hours just to get, okay, now my boots can evolve. Uh and yeah, why is armor evolves in here? I don't know what that's. I also kind of want the executed finishers to be a little earlier because I don't
Agreed.
know about you, but when I started, I thought that was the greatest thing. Like, sure,
Yeah.
I didn't understand, like, oh, it's risky. I'm being shot. It's like, haha, look at this strike victory pose. Look at Felix smacking a wisp with its tail and lighting it up. Like, I thought that was the coolest thing. And that kept me coming. Well, it's one of the things that kept me coming back was like just that flashy animation. So great idea. I feel bad for the people kind of caught in the middle of it that all of a sudden they had everything, now they don't. But in the long run, I think it's for the best.
It only just occurred to me, what if you go to the store, you buy a flashy 2000 Theory Craft coin skin, and you can't even access the finisher until
The
level
ghost.
25?
I'm like I have problems with Ghost right now. Which but that Ghost skin, that finisher on that skin,
Oh,
may
it's
be the
so
best
classy.
finisher in the game. The drop kick into the salute is so good.
I haven't
It-
seen that. Oh wait, yes. I
Oh,
have,
yeah.
Sorry.
The new Ghost skin, for anyone who didn't know, whenever you get a finisher kill with it, he presses a few buttons on his wrist, kicks the ghost forward, then salutes as his ult comes down and finishes it. And it's just so good. Like, it gets so much character to him, and it's a little sad that people can't experience that until level 25.
But this is actually, I think this is another great opportunity to sort of slide into maybe a misconception that people could have about all of us, and it's not just us necessarily, but there's always been a tongue-in-cheek vibe, and I think it's prevalent amongst both the more casual community and the more competitive community, where it's this idea that being positive about SUPERVIVE is sometimes being blind to the issues of SUPERVIVE. And I think that, as hopefully you would have gleaned from this podcast so far, I think all of us see the issues with SUPERVIVE right now. I mean, we've just talked about 10-15 minutes about this hunter's journey that has definitely missed the mark. It's regardless if it's a good idea or not, the execution of it has been sloppy, and it's kind of led to further evidence for some people that these developers, paraphrasing other folks, not me, that they don't know what they're doing. When it's like, it's clear what they are doing if you have been here and seen this sort of stuff for a long time. They're trying things, and to be fair, they have every right to try things because it is a beta, but I think, Major, we see it's a new age of gaming. To reference what Magical was talking about with League of Legends, people don't want to spend months to unlock ranked. They don't want to spend a week to unlock ranked. And they definitely don't want to spend days unlocking features of the game. They want instant results. And and it goes back to even just, the characters dropping, brand new hunters. If they aren't spot on the money, there will always be people who are angry about that and who will find a reason to complain about it. So I guess really, let's look at it from the other side. Do you understand why people complain about the game as often as they do? Or do you think it's maybe a little harsh on the developers, and maybe people just need to take a step back and a bit of a breather before engaging in these sorts of conversations?
I think it depends on tone. I spend a decent amount of time because at work, not to go into work, but I have a lot of time at work where I can just be in Discord sometimes.
Sure.
And I'll just be in there and I'll look and I'll be like, that didn't seem productive at all. There was no productive message in there whatsoever. Are you okay? And I'll kind of just sit in there like, yeah, is this gonna help anyone? And I feel like those type of messages I can just kind of play off. But it's when people, they have a more thought behind what they're doing, and they say things like, yeah, I understand where they were coming from, but it missed the mark, or this, I have experience with this. Like, there've been a few people that have said, yeah, my friends tried starting and they said they did not like the system. I said, good, tell them to make feedback. Tell them to make a post about it, because that's the stuff they need to hear.
But Magical, they've already sent feedback 1 million times over the past 2 days. Why aren't they listening to us, Magical?
Okay. I know you're doing. Yeah, I know what you're doing there, Relic. And this is always something that grinds my gears. Is like when people complain that things aren't being done about it. Like literally that second, it's like, well, that's because game development has many different levels. And as someone who's been around League of Legends back, I remember the times when there's the League of Legends forums. You put your feedback there, and they would they would listen to you and actually try to implement that. A month later, it takes time to implement these things.
Yeah.
And we forget, and this is why I always have to say, like, a lot of us, and even people who are going to be listening, we all forget we have been playing this game for a while now. The thing that now is the hard balancing act that Theorycraft are trying to do is balance the players who have been playing it a lot with the new players they're hoping will then come into the game. And that those players will then want to play this a lot. And so they do listen to this feedback, and it's great for you to send this feedback, but have some realistic expectations with the guys. You can't just expect them to get this thing and go, yeah, all right, next hour, it's already in the game. Boom, done. It's like, it doesn't work that way. It takes time. So give them some credit where credit is due, because they do actively listen. Like, they do try to make these big swings with changing the game, which I haven't really seen many other devs do. Like, a lot of other games will really just go, like, especially if the game is struggling at first, or it's like they're not finding that market right away, they will play it safe. And Theorycraft are taking the risks, and we should respect that in a lot of ways. Of course, call them out when they make bad decisions. Do not think that this is me going like, oh, just always say positive things and don't ever be mean. Or, well, okay, don't ever be mean, but don't say mean things about Theorycraft when it comes to how you are developing the game. Give them constructive criticism. That's always what I say. It's like, even with my casting, it's like I like when people give me constructive criticism so I can get better. That's the same for game developers. That's gonna be the same here for Theorycraft. Give them like that criticism. Say, hey, I don't think you did well here. Like what we're doing with the Hunter's Journey. Say, I get the idea. These are ways you can make it better. Like one easy way, another way that would make it easier for players is instead of having it tied to levels, have it tied to a number of games. Just be like, you have to play 25 games if you want to get to ranked. That now makes these players have to play a certain amount of games in order to get there. So it will give them a realistic expectation. It's not like I've been playing it for 3 hours. I'm only at level 4. What do I do? It's, okay, I finished 10 games. I still got 15 left to go.
I don't think you were in the server. Oh, go on. Sorry, Major. Sorry.
To quote Mandalore Gaming, game dev is like trying to fix your washing machine and then your microwave catches on fire.
Yeah, no, for real. Except in this case, they're also trying to completely reformat the kitchen. Like, they're trying to make the kitchen look as appealing to as many guests as possible.
They're redoing the kitchen, and then the garage sets on fire.
Yeah. On Magical, I don't think you were actually in the creator server for this moment. I know that Twin was, and I know that Major was, and I can't remember. I think it was January. So keep in mind that this is off the back of the devs have decided to stick with the resurgence mechanic, and then they've just left for the Christmas holidays. So already the bad feelings are bubbling underneath the surface. And then they announce, I think it's their first patch when they come back from Christmas holidays. Brawl's getting buffs. I swear, I have never seen, I have not seen a more unanimous sending of anger and hatred towards that development team than that moment when they announced that they were going to be buffing Brawl. And you can tell that surprised Theorycraft, and I think it was a very telling moment in the development of this game that they immediately reversed that decision. In fact, they didn't just reverse the decision, they nerfed Brawl in that update. And you would never have known if you weren't part of that discussion, but it does go to show that when there is a lot of voices coming together as one to say this one thing, Twin, that the results are there for everyone to see. And it's why I mean, look at Oath, for example. There are some people who will swear by Oath being one of the most problematic parts of SUPERVIVE. And there are others who are like, hey, you just got to remove the bunny hopping. And it's good to go. It's not going to be overpowered. And when you've got that complete split of opinion, and then multiply that over however many hundreds, thousands play this game, it's no wonder that decisions take a while to get to, because the developers have to try and concoct a solution that pleases everyone, but it never will.
No, you'll never make everybody happy. It's just physically impossible. And I think the thing that a lot of people tend to forget as well is that this is a small indie studio.
Yeah.
This isn't, thousands of devs all working at the same time to be like, we can do this. It's how many, like 40, 50 people, if that. So yes, things will take time. And it was, I don't remember which dev I was playing with, but he joked that they're victims of their own success because the game is actually very polished and it's very well made, that people in their minds just kind of assume it's a large studio and they have the backing and everything to make these changes rapid fire. But instead, it's a dude working in his home office, frantically typing away, trying to make changes to keep everybody happy. And to your point on Oath, I definitely feel like that is where smaller, less drastic changes, just minor tweaks, can go a long way. Because look at Hudson almost. Gunner originally, he was and I'm sorry, Magical.
Don't remind Magical.
I'm so sorry.
It's like when Frodo gets stabbed with the Morgul blade, and on the anniversary of that Hudson nerf, Magical just is bedridden for the entire day.
Pour one out. No, he was. He was just. He was
wait,
a very oppressive. Go for it.
I'm gonna interrupt you because this is something that gets me too. Everyone said Hudson was bad. Oh man, this hunter, nobody can play him. No one should play him. He's weak. Blah blah blah. No changes happen to him. Everyone then goes, wait, he is busted, and then they start playing him, and then he gets nerfed, which ruins my experience because I was doing so good with that hunter, and now I can't do anything.
So the hunter did have. Go for it, Major.
No, I was gonna say I agree with him. I don't know if you'll remember B at all, but she used to do the craziest stuff on Hudson. She's the reason Hudson looked good. Like her and Magical, and then just too broken now. Has to nerf. Like no.
But I felt like there were, as a non-Hudson main, there were some sweeping changes. He had that, what was it, the overheat mechanic that I personally didn't enjoy. I'm like, I like this hunter. Just get rid of that limitation. Unshackle the hunter. But instead it was like, okay, we're going to get rid of that and add a few things. And everybody's like, oh, he's not that good. Wait a second. We've learned how to use this hunter now. Your Gnar example, it's like, oh, this hunter's really, really good. And instead of just like the initial mild tune, they overcorrected. And all of a sudden you'll watch a Tom Kick tier list video. It's like Hudson super broken. Next week, Hudson C tier, bottom, not good anymore. And so that's why I prefer when they do take that very just like, all right, we're gonna do a minor correction here. Like Oath, oh my god, he's so broken. Wait, let's slow down the pod racing a bit. Let's get rid of the bee hopping. And then we might be like, oh, Oath is in a really healthy place. So I do prefer to see that. Now, how do they sort, like, what voices of the thousands to listen to the most? I would imagine it's obviously like, okay, 90% of players are talking about this. Our attention's on it. But I do appreciate that in the creator Discord and in competitive Discords and things like that, the people who play this game for 10 to 12 hours a day, almost every day, that they do listen to those voices because they have the experience. And they usually are like, I'll see a post from Major Pleasure that says a thread or, a thought discussion or something like that. And I immediately am like, I'm clicking this link, I'm dropping everything else and reading, because it's a well thought out critique or of, hey, here's what's good, here's what's not, or here's what's not working, and here's a few thoughts on what I think would fix it. But ultimately, you do you. You're the cooks in the kitchen. So I don't know how they do that. I would hate to be the dev that goes through and reads the feedback threads, because I'm sure there's some very angry voices in there.
So what you're saying is to make a feedback thread to say every time a train gets a kill, it goes slightly faster.
Yes,
That's
I
the
put
way.
that in every
That's the
week.
way.
Yeah,
I like that. You joke. That's a good idea.
Great idea.
Bloodthirsty trains is an amazing addition.
Hey, let me trigger
Hungers.
let me trigger the players who are playing this game who are upset with it. Let the developers cook. Just let them cook, guys. Let them cook. I mean, let Magical cook. More importantly, this guy is a great idea. Hey, give Hudson an extra shift again. All of his problems solved with an extra shift. Honestly.
Even if it's like a short dash, what if they give him like the Ghost like or Luna? Just give him a short dash and a long dash. Or I think KP also has that.
I'm just imagining Hudson with the maneuverability of a Luna now, and I can't.
Yes.
I can't endorse that. I'm sorry.
Everybody's got a gun. Oh, well, you said let the devs
The bunny
cook.
has a gun.
It's true.
It's one of the two bunnies that has a gun.
There are two bunnies.
gonna
God, I love that video.
It's gonna go fishing.
But no, we do. It's easy to forget. Like the devs have all been here before. Their backgrounds, their pedigree is insane, and they come from very, very successful backgrounds. But you see League of Legends where it is today. You see Apex. You see Overwatch 1. They weren't just one day like, boom, perfect game, or perfect with quotes here, but really polished game. Everybody go enjoy. There's growing pains, and there's these big haymakers and sweeping changes they have to throw out to see what works. Throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, get rid of the rest. So that's why I don't mind these changes. I'm here for the roller coaster ride, the good and the bad, because ultimately, through the feedback and through these play tests, I'm hoping the 1.0 release is a really, really, really polished and fun game that new players are going to want to stick around through.
I think Major hit the nail on the head alongside Magical. Really is, people see open beta nowadays. It's a glorified demo for most games, but for SUPERVIVE, we're talking about. Well, I mean, I'm looking at the battle pass length, and I'm kind of judging. Are we to expect 1.0 at the end of this? Well, at the end of the Arc 2 battle pass for Season 0, we're talking about SUPERVIVE being in open beta for basically a full year almost. You don't see that often. In fact, the only other game that comes to mind that was in sort of like an alpha beta stage for that long was Baldur's Gate 3. And look how that turned out with all of the various bits of input and feedback. We simply won't know SUPERVIVE's success on the big market until 1.0 hits. Because, as much as one thing that we have to keep in mind is, although it is a small indie studio, it is also that by design. This company has been backed. It's got a lot of money behind it from individual investors who saw the talent, saw the experience, and saw a really awesome vision to get behind. But rather than splashing out on a huge studio, they've kept the team small so that they can make a big impact, fingers crossed, with how polished the game is, with how good and how in-depth the game goes, with, fingers crossed, how strong the advertisement is going to be. And so it kind of goes into the importance of those competitive players to open beta, because obviously the situation we have now is that we have a bunch of players who play it casually, who'll maybe boot it up maybe once or twice a week maximum, but you'll always have like a rotating cast. It's not always the same people. Some people will drop it for 2 weeks. They'll come back after a few weeks. There's a player who we know well called Crouch, who's helped a lot with the secret Liquipedia for various competitive SUPERVIVE events. Used to be a part of a team called Kitten Carnage. And I've not heard from him for months. And then all of a sudden, he pops up again today. On the subreddit, or he pops up again for this upcoming Abyssal Cup. We have a bunch of players on record, on Reddit, on social media who have said, yo, I don't really want to playtest the game. When it gets to 1.0, I'm coming back. And so we now have a lot more of a, I wouldn't say it's a 50-50 split, but we have a stronger percentage in favor of the competitive players than we would at any other point in the game's history.
Mm-hmm.
So how much weight should we put on the shoulders of these players? Because I think, and I'll lean into Magical first, since we're like, you know, we've been casting the competitive scene for the longest at this point. In the case of that brawl buff that we talked about previously, that's where the competitive angle is perfect, because they can hold the developers accountable and say, this isn't a numbers problem. This is a people don't know how to play brawl properly problem. But sometimes it does go too far the other way, where they're almost looking at the situation too deep and they're not understanding that some players won't enjoy the characters if they don't have a little bit of a power fantasy associated with them.
Mm-hmm. And they're also looking at different numbers than we will. Like,
yeah,
you look at, they'll see win rate, number damage, etc., etc. So the case of Brawl is a really good example, just because the numbers were showing them that most players were doing bad on Brawl, and Brawl had a very low win rate. But that is also kind of going into the thing where it's like, that's because people didn't know how to play it. It's like, you also have the opposite problem, and this is where it's like, sometimes it's so tricky. I don't envy the game developers having to walk this fine line, because then you have the example like with Hudson, where the community is saying Hudson's bad. Everyone is saying it's bad, it needs buffs, but didn't, because it was just a case of, again, people not understanding how to fully play him. And then even with just some almost pity buffs, they weren't really that big. You then see everyone finally like going, oh god, this guy's really strong. I think the biggest change is, like Twin said, it was removing the overheat mechanic. That was one of the biggest gates that kind of limited Hudson, and I think was something that was okay. It was a little underbaked, but removing it, I got it. Just now I wouldn't even say Hudson's even bad now. Has gotten a couple buffs since that real big nerf, months back, but he is slowly kind of climbing his way back up. I think if you had like the double hover jets, then he'd be fine again. But I just think for a lot of things, it's always like, you should listen to the community, you should listen to what they're saying, but still you got to take a lot of this with a grain of salt, because there are also other times, like going back to League of Legends, where there have been characters everyone was like, this champ is weak, they're terrible, they don't even get buffed. They get what is always called like a pity buff, where you add like 2 base mana, or like that's no, actually it was 2 base health, or sorry, 2 base AD. So it's just a very small amount to someone like Caitlyn. And this is going way back, where it was like an infamous one where she got just a little bit extra, but it was enough so that every auto attack would still feel, I guess, slightly more satisfying. So if you ended up getting 40 auto attacks, you start seeing that buff actually come in, but it takes a lot. And from there, people are like, oh my god, Caitlyn's now busted, super strong. It's like, but it didn't really actually do much. Yeah. It's just people now looked at Caitlyn because there was this meme buff that she got and realized, oh wait, she's actually strong. And so I think that we have to kind of look at a lot of this and see like what is realistic, and like, are players just not used to playing that, which I think is like the case of Brawl, where most new players weren't used to playing with it. But if you're good at Brawl, you were good at Brawl, and it was way too strong. And so sometimes the game developers, when they look at those numbers, they don't look at the competitive aspect as well. Not always, because they are still trying to make this they're casting as wide of a net as possible. They want to get as many players in, because that's the whole point, is getting more players to join. So if you have one of your hunters that feels terrible to play as a new player, obviously it's not going to feel good for those new players that then went and unlocked this cool looking hunter. I mean, going back to the hunter's journey, you can make it so that certain hunters are locked behind the level gate, so they have to play the game more in order to unlock those. That's another way you can do it. But there you go. That's my rant.
Major and Twitch. So Major took part in early show matches, but is definitely more solo queue playing with friends. Twin, I know that you play a lot with your friends online.
just in terms of like a previously 4 stack, now 3 stack. For me, I think that there is a very tunnel focus attention on hunter balance with a lot of the competitive scene. That's what matters to a lot of these players, is not game mechanics, is not UI, it's how does a hunter feel when I am playing in scrims, when I am playing in tournaments. And perhaps there is a lack of attention towards the point that we keep on bringing up, which is these developers are still trying to develop a game that will retain the casual crowd on launch, so that we don't see the huge drop-off that we saw at Steam Next Fest, that we saw on open beta launch back in November 2024. So do you actually think that that is, first of all, understandable from the competitive crowd, that there is a frustration that there's maybe not as many balance patches going forward, but also do you understand the Theorycraft side, given A, their team size, but also B, that they're still trying to put together the game in the first place before it hits 1.0?
Well, you can go first, Twin. I got to think about how I'm going to phrase something.
I'm trying to collect thoughts on this one, because this is, when it comes to balancing, it feels very tough because you do need to appeal to newer players, but there's always the thought of, if you make something good for newer players, like an ability really good, then at the competitive level, it's going to be potentially busted good, like really broken. So wow, that's actually really tough to try to formulate, like how to phrase things with that. But I'm not going to fault Theorycraft for only doing, like, say for a hot fix, bi-weekly minor changes while trying to set up another hunter and another hunter after that.
Yeah.
Because it's so delicate and difficult. And if they mess up too much one way or the other, it completely ruins a hunter for everybody, be it good or bad. So I'm personally very okay with the path that they have been taking. And it's funny, to a point, you mentioned that I tend to play online with friends a lot. I I wanted to see the viewpoint from everybody who is solo queuing. So actually, since just before trios, when it's still squads, I've been primarily solo queuing to try and get an idea of what that experience is like, so I can better relate and give advice based off of people who play like that. And in that regards, I do actually really enjoy the changes they've been making, because I didn't think I would actually enjoy it, but they've found a way to give individual players that presence.
Yeah.
So I like what Theorycraft's doing. It's difficult, it's tricky. To me, they're walking the slack line across like a huge chasm and just very carefully balancing each thing, because if they tip too far to either side, they fall. So, man, tough question.
So I have two things I'm going to mention. Like with the relation to balance and changes with competitive and non. I in that creator Discord, I recently made a post about the balance, and I specifically called out 5 hunters, not because I think they ruined the balance of the game or they changed the meta, but they're just not fun to play against right now. Those were Jin, Brawl, Ghostmyth, and Oath. Those are the 5 that I recently, since I've been playing a lot, I'm just not having fun fighting for a myriad of different reasons, and I listed them out. But I specifically said at the beginning, this is not from a competitive standpoint. This is not from I want to be a top. This is, I'm not having fun fighting them, which I think is one of the more important things to, like, one of the big things to focus on when it comes to balance. Like, it's not fun getting hit by Myth 3 times before you can even get to her and you're dead. And same with Ghost. He hits 1 grenade on you no matter which way he does, and you're pretty much dead by the time you get to him. And those are the type of things I wanted to focus on. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and it is something very dear, very important to me, is not focusing, like, this is going to sound bad, but it's not focusing too much on the comp side. I always tell them about the finals. It's a game I loved when it was first in beta, and I loved when it first came out, and I still play it all the time because it's just a fun sandbox game. But there are a few changes that have been put into that game because of like the push by the competitive crowd of, hey, this isn't good for the game, or hey, this isn't healthy, and it's kind of removed some of the magic. To not go into too much detail, an example, there's a red barrel in the game you can pick up and throw, flies like a missile, explodes on the first target. In the second beta, you used to be able to, if you were crouched behind a teammate, they jumped, and then you threw the barrel, they could ride it like a rocket across the map.
That's amazing.
And the devs removed it because comp players complained about it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
And that type of stuff I always bring up whenever like anything like that comes up. Like, please don't do this. That type of stuff is so interesting and so much fun, and it just gets taken away, and it kind of takes some of the magic.
Do you know what our equivalent of that is? Master duo stat queue.
Yeah.
That's our equivalent. That's the big divide, I think, between the casual players and the competitive, because the competitive players want to play with their friends. But I think one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people were driven away from open beta launches, there was no Season 0 to protect new players against Lima and the Last Door. There was no there was no chance that these players had, especially with how complex, like, the game was way more complicated back then than it is now. And it's still complicated now, which is okay. That's part of SUPERVIVE's identity. That's all good. But without these limitations, I think that SUPERVIVE would continue to hemorrhage players. Like, we've actually, and I know we shouldn't be focusing too much on the concurrent users right now, mostly because Theorycraft isn't. They're just, they understand 100% is 1.0 and that's the big send, and whatever happens, happens. But for me, Major, it's like, I feel for them. I get why they are angry, because a lot of them have played together for the longest time through the early stages of Project Loki. But brother, it's not just you. It's not just you and your mates. It's everybody and their friends who we want to play this game so that we can all continue to play this game. That's why the casual perspective is so important, no?
Yep.
I agree. And it's funny too, because of the upper level players, I also think of like Phenom, who is one of the best to do it. And he didn't like the 4 stacks of legend players just sweeping lobbies. It's not fun to him. And that he said he had more fun when he was limited, and all of a sudden you have to play with, a gold 3. And it's like, okay, I can still win this. We can still win this in spite of the fact that another team happened to roll really high with like the level of players. So I like I know it's not quite the topic of discussion, but I did appreciate the ranked restriction, because it does make the game more fun for the casual person not to know that like they'll just have to optimistically get third this game because there's too many powerful 4 stacks we're facing.
And it's one of the things that I mentioned is that, like, for example, with matchmaking getting better, there was somebody on the subreddit who put out like, hey, so nobody's mentioned like the matchmaking's way better. And I'm like, thank you. Nobody's actually said it and said, thank you, developers, for making this change, because now I can get into a game in 3 minutes or less, which is way better than some of the wait times that we had during stacks. But on top of that, like, I think that, oh no, it's gone from my head. But I mean, the point being, it's a classic internet trope. Complain, and then when a fix does come in, nobody actually gives it. It's where credit is due. I remember what I was going to say. The ranked restrictions come in. Yeah, guess what? They've also opened up custom games to everyone. And so now, if you want that competitive experience where you get to play with all of your friends, organize in-houses, organize scrims, because all of those servers are available. You've got Battle Hub Player Lounge, you've got Esports Gaming League with their tournaments, you've got NA scrims, you've got EU scrims, you've got South America. There are so many resources to access to get the experience that you want without taking away from the players. And look, I'm as much of a ranked hoe as anybody else in the sweaty competitive scene. I will never play unranked, but I tell you what, I will put my ranked ego aside. If you're telling me that the only way I get to play with my friends is to do trios unranked, I'm going to play trios unranked. Like, that feels like a obvious decision, no? But as I say, not everybody will never be 100% happy. There's always going to be that one who finds an issue.
You know, it's funny. I thought the example you were going to give, and just on the topic of ranked, unranked, I thought the example you were going to give about the throw the barrel, friend rides it, was going to be Resurgence. And how a lot of people didn't like it. Newer players enjoyed it because they had more chance to play. And I thought Theorycraft's handling of that, not at first, obviously, but their recent solution of, hey, normals will keep Resurgence because that's your time to learn and practice and try things and play with your friends. And then when you want to get sweaty, if you would, it's now turned off Survive. So I actually really appreciate how they handled that. And much like Yelp reviews always being negative, nobody usually comments on like, oh, this was pleasant. I'm going to let everybody know. It's like, I had a bad experience. The world needs to understand this. So like I don't know. That's one of those changes I actually really, really appreciated. I think that was just well done by them.
Yeah, positivity is always seemingly channeled quietly, whereas negativity spreads like a forest fire. Feels like the appropriate metaphor to use there. But let's
fire references. Why?
You'd be there to save us.
Come on,
always. And save me, big strong man, please. I'm almost begging for it at this. Anyway, speaking about big strong players, let's talk about. Let's focus on our competitive segment for the podcast. Like, if you're not interested in competitive, then I guess you can skip forward. I'll probably put the time codes in the description, so if you're not interested, you can go straight to the end and you can hear about our hopes for May and going forward and the wrap up. But we've got the next big Abyssal Cup event up and coming, 1,200 prize pool, officially sponsored by Age of War Esports. So thank you very much to Ariri in particular, who has boosted the prize pool from 800, by the way, to 1,200. So that is a pretty significant investment from his side. I've dropped the groups in chat, so the groups will be available for everyone to see on the Battle Hub Player Lounge. I might do a big post on my Twitter as well if you want to go and check. Not sure how much all of y'all are in tune with the EU competitive scene, but we've got a lot of storied players, a lot of really cool teams. We've got, as I say, one of the teams that I want to point out is in Group C, Kit and Carnage, where Sebi and Crouch, they have been part of the scene for a long, long time. Their last competitive outing with Kit and Carnage was VIVE Club back in December. So it's been a hot 4 months. It's been so long that they find themselves unseeded for this tournament. I want to give a big shout out to the Tax Collectors, also in Group C, our guest appearance North American team. We're going to be excited to see how they do. But let's talk favorites. Let's talk about players that we are excited to see. Let's talk about the groups and how they are stacked up. Because Magical, one thing that I do enjoy doing is sitting down and seeding all of these teams and seeing just where everybody truly is in the pecking order.
Black Frogs, if you don't know, they're essentially Bomba, just newer. And this is a team that I think is really exciting to see because they are starting to like actually click now as a roster. They are looking a lot more like what we saw from Bomba way back in the day. If you don't remember Bomba, that was the team that dominated
the most successful team
for a long time until, slowly started drifting apart. And so it's sad to see them go, but the Black Frogs definitely are the team that has been taking that. Turbo Velocity, Tom Cake's team, always going to be a standout as well. But if I'm looking further down, I think that there are some fun newer teams like Team Steady Momentum. Yeah. This is a team with Lil Meep that is very exciting to watch. Like, Lil Meep has these great Kingpin hooks, and that's also something that's great to see from EU to NA, is that EU has this high prioritization around Kingpin. Even after the wave of nerfs, they still love playing this hunter.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Lil Meep, I think, is one of those players that's really shown just how good Kingpin still is, and makes me really excited to see how they are going to step up in Group B, especially because they have the Black Frog. Stormbreakers is another team that's really been rising up as well. So for steady momentum, they're kind of like, we expect them to be in the top 3, but it would be cool to see them actually like contend for that first place seed against both those other teams.
So I guess I should probably talk about the format just in general. So it's a 2-day event, April 26th to 27th. So if you're listening to this in the week before or I guess the days before the tournament, you can tune in twitch.tv/JustRelic over both the Saturday and the Sunday. The top 4 teams from each group progress forward to day 2, which is where we have a final 12. And they will go through, first of all, a mini-series, a boost stage where they can earn a head start points-wise before heading into a final 6-game series. And if you haven't gone and watched the first Abyssal Cup, it is live on my channel. I should probably upload it to the YouTube as well, quite frankly, because I don't want to lose it. It was some of the best SUPERVIVE that we've ever seen, and Twin can attest to that from the Saturday where poor Eternal J basically just went Giga Chad mode with one of the moments of all time.
Please upload that. I am begging you. I don't. Unedited, it doesn't matter. Get the raw footage out there. The people need to see. Again, just great competitive SUPERVIVE. It's so fun, edge of my seat kind of thing. But wow, Eternal J was incredible. Like actually incredible.
You know what's a real shame? So although you're looking at the groups as they are, it's not like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across the rows in terms of seeding, because of course some teams are available at certain times, other teams available at other times, and so it's a mixture of the out and out seeding playing out combined with when these squads are available. Going into the SUPERVIVE's showdown for April, Turbo Velocity had like a 30 seeding point advantage over the Black Frogs. They drop potentially one of the worst tournament performances of their existence as a team. I think it's a little bit harsh because the way the Esports Gaming League do it is they do random groups. And so there was definitely one group which had maybe 2 or 3 of the better teams when they should have been in the other group. But Turbo Velocity not even making it through to the next stage and not even getting, like, they were 9th or 10th in their group. And they didn't pick up any seeding points from that event, therefore, which means that the Black Frogs actually come in as the first seed because they won and because they had such a good event. So there's certainly some chips on shoulders. There's certainly some really exciting players to watch out for. Major Pleasure, listen, I know that your competitive playing days maybe behind you. I remember fondly your one single show match win, which what was it, along with Dolphy and that squad? Like that was one of my no.
My show match was actually with the one person I was going to shout out. I have not been able to really pay too much attention to the comp scene because I've been crazy busy with other stuff in life. But Ezib. No, Ezib is, from everyone I've played with, Ezib is one of the craziest players I have ever had the experience of playing with. And we won that show match because he was playing a Luna, which again, Ezib was one of the best Lunas of all time, with double
Still
nuke.
is.
He was playing Ezib with double nuke and had top damage in the entire match, and we won.
Was that the one with like the entire squad getting eliminated from one of those nukes? Or am I misremembering?
I think so.
I think that's where he got all of the damage from us. I want to say he took out Moonlit Battlegrounds in one go.
This was before we had even team names, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was back like pre-NDA dropping very early in the scene type level of stuff.
You definitely won a show match after that.
I
like,
might have, yeah.
You're making me uncertain now. I'm almost sure that with Dolphy, you guys won a show, or you won a game at one point in one of, it might have been in Live and Levive Loca. Does that ring a bell?
No, no, is when I played with Moonlit Battlegrounds, and we got second on that last game of one of the tournaments right as the game went live,
Mm.
and we only lost because my game crashed in the last fight.
Oh.
Hate to see it.
Yeah.
Hate to see it. Which, I'll tell you what, compared to the show matches, Magical, it's why I love series. Because even if moments like that do happen, there is always a chance to get back into it. However, in these group stages, only 4 games to get your business done. And I think as we saw with, well, I don't mean to rag on Dolphy necessarily, but it was 4 power shards. They bless them. They were super clutch. They subbed in for Group B on Abyssal Cup 1. And really, when you looked at the level of player on that roster, despite the late call-up, you'd think, yeah, I mean, at the very least, they should be fighting for top 4. And I think they got 6th or something because they just couldn't string together enough kill points. They couldn't string together enough high place finishes. And it's why one of our new emerging favorite teams in the SUPERVIVE Illuminati, that was really their first like moment on stage. I mean, some of the team plays with Thank You and the B-bomb setups were truly awesome.
Well, that was the one where there were, I think, 3 teams that were all knocking on the door of like 4th place, and one of them ended up getting 2nd overall, if I'm remembering correctly. But it was like between everybody here, it was like, okay, these are the ones who know they have a shot, and it all came down to that last game. And unfortunately for Dolphator squad, it was like just not good enough.
Yeah.
And SVI, on the other hand, just popped off. They had like almost a victory lap level final game. Like I remember that. Upload the VODs. I'm begging you.
I will. Well, look, let's. I mean, we don't want to go too deep into the source. That's going to be for the Abyssal Cup shows themselves. But let's talk about favorites. I want a tournament winner from each of you.
Okay, if I may. So because Bomba being one of my favorite teams ever, there was another group that hasn't been mentioned yet, where the possible heart and soul of Bomba went to, and that is Breakfast on You.
That's a good one.
Aiden, so the Homie Kissers broke apart, and they formed one team, 2 formed another, and amongst them, Sprokane and Shroom picked up Aiden. Aiden, for a long time before I got into the game, was considered arguably the best player, if not at least the most knowledgeable. He's very, very good, very experienced, and he will play on any server in any amount of lag at the highest level because he just loves the game. So for Group A, despite all the monsters I'm looking at in here, especially like, Charged Up, that is a nasty team. I've got to give it to Breakfast on You for them. And overall, I think it's going to come down to Team Turbo Velocity and Breakfast on You for the overall winner. TTV, they tend to when stuff is on the line, when their name and their pride, especially with that recent L that they took, is on the line. That's when they seem to turn it up. That's when Tom Kick makes the play of the game after play of the game, and just seems to have like global vision at all times with his shot calling and positioning and playmaking. Aiden tends to step up, and I know that Breakfast on You hasn't performed as well. But with the hours that Sprokane's been putting in, with Aiden's knowledge and capabilities, and again, not to sleep on Shroom, I'm predicting it's going to be one of those 2 teams. But I am also extremely biased because my 3 favorite EU players were listed amongst those 2 teams: Aiden, Tom Kick, and Sprokane. So I will acknowledge the bias, but I also acknowledge that I think like the 2 legends of Tom Kick and Aiden clashing for like the top 2 spot is where I see this going.
So we've got a Breakfast on You. Major pleasure. Who are we looking at?
Again, I've been too into the nitty gritty of the comp scene, so I'm going off of what I've seen everywhere else and my past experience. Pure vibes, but most like 80% vibes. A little bit of favoritism. So I'm gonna shout out Border Patrol just because if EZIP does what EZIP does, no one's gonna be able to do anything against him. The other one I'm going to shout out, and I didn't notice this at first, Questionable Tactics. OC has been doing a lot of work on
Legend.
Eva recently.
Legend.
And if no
So
one
good.
else pulls out Eva and OC gets to play Eva the way he's going to play Eva, I don't know if people are going to be able to deal with it. And it's going to change how people see Eva as a character. Because OC has been doing a lot of work on her.
Magical.
So, I've been thinking about it,
Mhm.
right? I could go with the obvious answers. I could go with, Breakfast on You, with Black Frogs, Turbo Faucet.
Uh-huh.
I could go with, like, a slightly underappreciated pick. Stormbreaker, Steady Momentum, Questionable Tactic Squad. But you know what? I'm going to go for the big meme. I'm going to choose a team that's not one that we've talked about yet. I'm going to
Okay.
give it to Call an Ambulance.
Really?
Yes.
Manolo
Really?
and Luca fall from grace.
Yes.
That's the team that I'm gonna peg for this one because Luca fall from grace has been wanting to play a lot of Eva as well, and I'm so glad you talked about how OC15 has been playing a lot of the Eva as well there, Major, because those I think it's between OC15 and Luca as the Eva players for EU. And I think those two teams are definitely going to surprise a lot of people when it comes to this tournament. And that is why I'm going to put mine on to Call an Ambulance to really say that this might be the team that shakes it up the most.
And you know what?
Is
There's a
their
fun.
name based? Oh, sorry. Is their name based on Call an Ambulance, but not for me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it
Yeah.
I like their name strictly for very personal work-related reasons, so they are on my radar. So I love that. Sorry, as you were saying.
And you know, there's a bit of spice in there as well because Luca, Fall from Grace, actually left Border Patrol to join Call an Ambulance, Soul replacing them on that roster. So if they both end up in the top 12, there's potentially a bit of spice. You know, I thought the picks was going to come round to me, and I'm going to be like, people, yeah, they've done Turbo Velocity, they've done Black Frogs, they've done Breakfast on You. All four of us are not going to choose the top 2 seeds going into this tournament because I'm going to back Stormbreakers. Stormbreakers is one of, if not the hottest rising squads in EU. So good has been their recent form. They are 4th seed going into this tournament. 4th. I think they only started picking up points in February or March.
Yeah,
That's
March, I
how
think.
good they are. And so Shin, Detbarek, Gecko, I think this is the perfect storm of a squad that has flexibility in what they can play, as well as good synergy in what they can play. That's what I'm worried about with Black Frogs and Turbo Velocity, and I think that we saw it with Turbo Velocity in the EGL SUPERVIVE showdown. You've removed your support mechanism in Teldo. Not to say that those 3 players aren't all great themselves. You know that Adamar can play a decent Oath. A better Oath than Teldo? I don't think so. And given how aggressive they are, given how aggressive the Black Frogs are, these are squads that shine bright and win multiple games in a row, or they burn out pretty quickly. I think Breakfast on You, we've not seen enough consistency from them to say that they'll be, for the long run, in the hunt. They always drop 1 clanger per series, like a 9th or 10th place. We've not seen a single tournament where they've not been able to do that. Stormbreakers are continual, pestering nuisances within the top 4, top 3. And so I'm going to go for one further wildcard prediction. I'm going to say that Stormbreakers will win the Abyssal Cup 2 without winning a single game.
Oh, I like that.
That's
I like that a lot.
Interesting.
So there's your hot and spicy pick. But it's
Gotta be
time
a
to simmer
parlay on
down
that
now.
somewhere.
Listen, we've been cooking the hot pot for a good hour and a half, I think, at this point. It's been a bumper opening episode. So thank you if you've gotten this far. Let's wrap it up. First and foremost, with some hopes for May. We've got a brand new Hunter dropping. Who knows what else we're going to be getting? Major pleasure. What would you like for Christmas in May?
I have a hope for what the next Hunter is. It's not going to be that Hunter because that Hunter died a long time ago and is never coming back, or is in the freezer for a long time. And probably won't be coming back. Did any of y'all play during the Freaky Week? Or any of y'all here?
Freaky Week? No, I don't think so.
I
think that was just before my time.
Well, I won't talk too long. We had boats that you could drive around that had guns on them. 3 new hunters that were tested for a little while. There was Bebo, the first Bebo, the reason he's a war criminal. Yeah, you guys are getting it easy with the current Bebo. Landmines everywhere. Gunslinger, who was literally just Shiv, but had a wizard hat and was brown, which is the hunter that I
Amazing.
desperately miss, but I doubt we're going to get back. And then Leon, who was a wrestling character, which very early in development. I hope the new hunter's great. I'm hoping to get video done next 2 weeks, then get the new hunter one, then get one done in the next month. And I also hope we get some sort of update to the practice mode, because I missed the time trial. I really missed the time trial. Like, that was so much fun going through the time trial in the old practice mode.
Twin, what are your hopes for May?
Ooh, because my biggest hope was for a good new support hunter, which we got, and I was not expecting this. I thought it'd be like a buffer debuffer or something. Instead, we got Eva. So, and I love it. Honestly, hopes for me, I'm very simple. I'm just gonna let the devs cook. Hopefully they like do those minor adjustments to a few hunters, and that the new one is just really fun. I'm sorry for the very bland answer given my usual like screaming, yelling excitement, but I love this game, so I just want to let the devs do their thing and surprise me.
Hey, new hunters are always fun. Magical, what about you?
So, I'll keep asking for it until it happens. Make it so that bullet trains, when they kill someone, they go faster.
We're just going to be like a
there.
propaganda platform now. This is all it's going to be.
This is the train propaganda here. We need more bullet trains. More. Faster. More of them. Like, put 4 or 5. I don't care. However many it takes to make them even more exciting. Because I want to use the whistle that much more and have a lot of fun with it. So I'll keep asking for it until it happens. Anyways, what I actually want to talk about too is that, so May is actually going to be, so my birthday is on May 17th, which just happens to line up on a Saturday, happens to line up a couple weeks after we'll have the new hunter. So I thought, you know what? Why not have like a little birthday bash for myself? So I'm going to have a tournament for that day called Magical's Mad Birthday Bash, where I have been cooking up some ideas for games that players can play. It will kind of be, if you remember the Sinoid Pizza Party, a little bit in that kind of vein. And so I'm going to have teams sign up. I'm going to try to get an EU portion and an NA. If we can get enough signups for it, I'm going to start the signups early for this too. So that way we can really get the players in. I don't know if there will be any prize. It is going to be far more for fun. I'll see if maybe we can have like some of the Theorycraft coins that get tossed into this. We were able to do that for the Happily Eva After, which was really nice of them. Shout out to Pliff, who was able to help out to give those to the players. But maybe do something for that. But this is just pretty much the announcement. So May 17th, save that date. It's going to be a Saturday, and we're going to try to have a really fun event for it.
Link in the description below when it goes live. We got you covered for Magical's Mad Birthday Bash, or your working title, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be a lot of fun. We hope that you had a lot of fun listening to this silly little podcast. Bi-weekly, rotating cast. Should be a lot of fun. Maybe we can convince some of the unsuspecting devs to come on here at some point as well. We can talk about the game in a little more depth.
We need to have this happen.
What do you mean convince?
Well, you know, it's...
As long as I can continue to shill my pro-train propaganda, that is all that matters.
Yep, so, I mean, you know, we hope that you enjoyed tuning into the Bullet Train Propaganda Show. Episode 1. Episode 2, we will hopefully have the new hunter to talk about, amongst, fingers crossed, many other things.
New storm shifts.
New storm shifts! Yes! We need more of those, please!
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, comment, as I said, our curious question of the pod. We'll be looking to get as many of those in as possible so that we have a lot of content over the coming... I've just knocked over a water bottle. It's chaos here in the High Vive Lounge. So much love to you all from Magical, Twin A, and Major Pleasure. Take care. Best of luck with whatever you're doing out there. My name is Just Relic. And from all of us here, we'd say very warm goodbye.